Greetings and welcome. We are in Senior English A, and we are now working with, on page 19 of your hymnal, a term I need you to put in your notebook, day planner, annotations, because this is an important term. The Exeter Book. The Exeter Book. Do you see it at the top of page 19? Okay? The Exeter Book. Go to where it says an early anthology, second heading on page 19, and read with me. The Exeter Book is a collection, see that's what you want to write down, a collection of manuscripts that includes pieces of the Anglo-Saxon tradition. The book was probably compiled by monks during the reign of Alfred the Great, roughly 871 to 899. Let's make this simple. Give it an easy date. I always like easy round dates, so write down 900. 900. If you have 900 as Exeter and you have 1,000 as Beowulf, you're talking about 100 years roughly before the Beowulf epic finally gets written down. Now, in our discussion, we normally will talk Beowulf first and then come back to these three poems from the Exeter Book. We're going to look at three of these poems. You should have 3 sheets of paper out for 3 different annotations because we're going to work through now all 3 of these poems. The first of the 3, Seafarer. The second, The Wanderer. And finally, Wives Lament. So as we look at each one of these poems, we're going to ask a couple of important questions. Let's go ahead and list them in our annotations. 1. What do these poems tell us? What do these poems tell us about what it's like to live the life of a Viking or a Norseman or an Anglo-Saxon? What do these poems tell us about what it's like to live this life? These people, I said to you before, spend a lot of time on boats sailing out in waters that are very dangerous. And so early on, we're going to hear from these guys about how dangerous the life that they live in the first 2 poems. In the third poem, we're going to get a different perspective. This is not going to be the perspective of the man, warrior, soldier, sailor, who sails away. We're going to get the perspective of the woman who gets left behind. The wife who gets left behind. Are you ready for this? These cats could leave and not come back for 2 years. No, that's serious. They go off on a journey that will take them for long periods of time, and they're gone. And then finally they come back. Of course, during their absence, the obvious question is, well, who gets left behind? The women do. Well, what is it that they do other than wait for their man to return? Well, they got to figure out some way to survive. Of course, there are stories, of course, about the ships would be going down and drowning, and then what? Well, they're all left alone, right? The woman's left alone. So there's going to be this lament, means cry. Lament means cry. So the Wives Lament, the third poem. Let's go ahead and talk about these poems collectively and then individually. Collectively. 1, they're sad poems. All 3 of them are sad poems. Why? Because these people live hard lives. They live short lives often and very dangerous lives, and then die. You can die, of course, from any number of things. You can die from war, being killed in war. But you can also die from other kinds of things. Illness, of course, old age, always a possibility, right? Okay. Number 2, these poems all can be read both literally and metaphorically, symbolically. There's a physical journey, but there's also an emotional or spiritual journey. And we're going to see that as well. Finally, number 3. These poems tell us something about the Anglo-Saxon Code that we talked about when we were talking about Beowulf. The Anglo-Saxon Code. So as we look at each one of these poems, we're going to want to hear what is being spoken in regards to the Anglo-Saxon Code. All 3 of the poems speak from a first-person perspective. There is a speaker in the poem talking about what happens in that individual or that speaker's life. We're going to begin by listening to the Seafarer. I'm with you on page 21. Look at the background. To the Anglo-Saxon people of Britain, Home meant something different from what it means for people today. You want to write that down. In other words, home. There's different perspectives on home. An Anglo-Saxon warrior viewed himself as the follower of a particular lord or king, not as the citizen of a nation. Gathering in the mead hall, that's our Heorot hall, drinking hall, a building dedicated to their feasts, a lord and his warriors would share food, drink, entertainment, and fellowship. Smoky, noisy, smelly, and crowded, the mead hall was home. Let's say it out loud. This is a poem about being homesick, about being away from your home. Let's listen to it now. And as we've often said, the goal here is to follow closely the language. Don't just listen. Read.
Translated and read by Burton Raphael, a seafarer. This tale is true and mine. It tells how the sea took me, swept me back and forth in sorrow and fear and pain, showed me suffering in 100 ships, in 1,000 ports, and in me. It tells of smashing surf when I sweated in the cold of an anxious watch, perched in the bows cast on the cliffs. My feet were cast in icy bands, bound with frost, with frozen chains, and hardship groaned around my heart. Hunger tore at my sea-weary soul. No man sheltered on the quiet fairness of earth can feel how wretched I was drifting through winter on an ice-cold sea, whirled in sorrow, alone in a world blown clear of love, hung with icicles. The hailstorms flew. The only sound was the roaring sea, the freezing waves. The song of the swan might serve for pleasure, the cry of the seafowl, the croaking of birds instead of laughter, the mewing of gulls instead of mead. Storms beat on the rocky cliffs and were echoed by icy feather turns and the eagle's screams. No kinsman could offer comfort there to a soul left drowning in desolation. And who could believe, knowing but the passion of cities, swelled proud with wine and no taste of misfortune, how often, how wearily I put myself back on the paths of the sea. Night would blacken, it would snow from the north, frost bound the earth, and hail would fall the coldest seas. And how my heart would begin to beat, knowing once more the salt waves tossing on the towering sea. The time for journeys would come, and my soul called me eagerly out, sent me over the horizon seeking foreigners' homes. But there isn't a man on earth so proud, so born to greatness, so bold with his youth, grown so brave or so graced by God that he feels no fear as the sails unfurl, wondering what fate has willed and will do. No harps ring in his heart, no rewards, no passion for women, no worldly pleasures, nothing, only the ocean heave. But longing wraps itself around him. Orchards blossom, the towns bloom, fields grow lovely as the world springs fresh, and all these admonish that willing mind leaping to journeys, always set in thoughts traveling on a quickening tide. So summer's sentinel, the cuckoo, sings in his murmuring voice, and our hearts mourn as he urges. Who could understand in ignorant ease what we others suffer as the paths of exile stretch endlessly on? And yet my heart wanders away, my soul roams with the sea to Wales home, wandering to the widest corners of the world, returning ravenous with desire, flying solitary, screaming, exciting me to the open ocean, breaking oaths on the curve of a wave. Thus the joys of God are fervent with life, where life itself fades quickly into the earth. The wealth of the world neither reaches to heaven nor remains. No man has ever faced the dawn certain which of fate's three threats would fall: illness, or age, or an enemy's sword snatching the life.
You want to get those three in your notes, right? Those are the three things you
The
can get
praise
jacked
of
by.
loving pour on the dead flowers from reputation. Plant an earthly life of profit, reaped even from hatred and rancor, of bravery flung in the devil's face. And death can only bring you earthly praise and a song to celebrate a place with the angels, life eternally blessed in the hosts of heaven. The days are gone when the kingdoms of earth flourished in glory. Now there are no rulers, no emperors, no givers of gold, as once there were, when wonderful things were worked among them, and they lived in lordly magnificence. Those powers have vanished. Those pleasures are dead. The weakest survives, and the world continues kept spinning like oil. All glory is tarnished. The world's honor ages and shrinks, bent like the men who mold it. Their faces blanch as time advances. Their beards wither, and they mourn the memory of friends, the sons of princes, sown in the dust. The soul stripped of its flesh knows nothing of sweetness or sour, feels no pain, bends neither its hands nor its brain. A brother opens his palms and pours down gold on his kinsman's grave, strewing his coffin with treasures intended for heaven. But nothing golden shakes the wrath of God for a soul overflowing with sin, and nothing hidden on earth rises to heaven. We all fear God. He turns the earth. He set it swinging firmly in space, gave life to the world and light to the sky. Death leaps at fools who forget their God. He who lives humbly has angels from heaven to carry him courage and strength and belief. A man must conquer pride, not kill it. Be firm with his fellows, chaste for himself. Treat all the world as the world deserves, with love or with hate, but never with harm, though an enemy seek to scorch him in hell or set the flames of a funeral pyre under his Lord. Fate is stronger and God mightier than any man's mind. Our thoughts should turn to where our home is, consider the ways of coming there, then strive for sure permission for us to rise to that eternal joy, that life born in the love of God and the hope of heaven. Praise the holy grace of him who honored us, eternal, unchanging creator of earth. Amen.
I want to go to page 23, and I want to point out that in so many ways, this poem works nicely with the famous Hrothgar speech at the end of Beowulf 2 that you read with me from your packet. Remember that? It wasn't in your hymnal. I had to hand it out to you. It's not in your book. But you'll remember that Hrothgar said something very similar. Notice, the days are gone when the kingdoms of earth flourished in glory. This is the poem of an old fart. Things are changing. The great times going away. Now, it is true that high school seniors can sometimes read these poems and get a sense, it's kind of like being a senior, where you're happy you're a senior and your high school career is coming to a close, but you're also aware that it's over. It's done. It's over. You can't go back and undo anything. It's done. There's no way to undo it, and there's no way to go back. Somehow, it's gone. The experience, it's gone. And all you can do now is just remember it in some way. But I want you to point out for yourself in your notes the last line of page 23. All glory is tarnished. The world's honor ages and shrinks, bent like the man who molded. As you get older, you can have a tendency to get more sad about the fact that things are passing away. But then there's this question about pride. Look at the final lines on page 24. Notice we're told, death leaps at the fools who forget their God. He who lives humbly has angels from heaven to carry him courage and strength and belief. A man must conquer pride, not kill it. What does that mean to you? Jot down in your notes what that means to you. A man must conquer pride, not kill it. Do you ever actually get rid of pride?
No.
No. You have to learn how to live alongside that pride. What is pride? What does that even mean? What does pride mean?
Seems like
Now, a feeling of accomplishment. Now see, here's the thing. Pride can be both good and bad.
yeah.
You can have self-worth, feeling of accomplishment. You've done something, and you can feel good about that.
Or you're too stubborn.
But pride can also go too far, right? Yeah, you can become too stubborn. You can become like beyond your estimation of yourself can grow too far beyond, right? And then you can think better of yourself than other people. Like you can put other people down. Not good, right? Not good. So you have to be able to live alongside this pride. Not kill it, but in some way conquer it. What do you make of the line, our thoughts should turn to where our home is?
Always remember.
Always remember where you came from. Let's write it down. That's huge. Always remember where you came from. As you leave and as you go away, always remember where you came from, because that's going to be important. The Wanderer. Let's go to this one. The Wanderer is going to now be our second poem that we'll look at from the Exeter Book. And let's just talk about this poem for a second. This poem is about, can I use this word, collapse. What does that mean? If something collapses, it caves in, it falls, it's crumbled, right? This is really a poem about the collapse of a world. Lots of things have gone wrong. I want you to write this down at level 1. All the things that has gone wrong in this poor wanderer's life. And as we listen to the poem, I want you to jot down all the things that have maybe gone wrong, all right? So, what is it that's gone wrong in this guy's
The
life?
Wanderer, translated by Charles W. Kennedy. Oft to the wanderer, weary of exile, cometh God's pity, compassionate love.
Read, Ricardo, read.
Though woefully toiling on wintry seas, with churning oar in the icy wave, homeless and helpless, he fled from fate. Thus saith the wanderer, mindful of misery, grievous disasters, and death of kin. Oft when the day broke, oft at the dawning, lonely and wretched I wailed my woe. No man is living, no comrade left, to whom I dare fully unlock my heart. I have learned, truly, the mark of a man is keeping his counsel and locking his lips. Let him think what he will, for woe of heart withstandeth not fate. A failing spirit burneth no hell. Men eager for honor bury their sorrow deep in the breast. So have I also, often in wretchedness, fettered my feelings, far from my kin, homeless and hapless since days of old, when the dark earth covered my dear Lord's face, and I sailed away with sorrowful heart over wintry seas, seeking a gold lord, if far or near lived one to befriend me, with gift in the meat hall and comfort for grief. Who bears it knows what a bitter companion, shoulder to shoulder, sorrow can be, when friends are no more. His fortune is exile, not gifts of fine gold, a heart that is frozen, earth's winsomeness dead. And he dreams of the hallmen, the dealing of treasure, the days of his youth, when his lord bade welcome to wassail and feast. But gone is that gladness, and never again shall come the loved counsel of comrade and king. Even in slumber his sorrow assaileth, and dreaming he claspeth his dear lord again. Head on knee, hand on knee, loyally laying, pledging his liege as in days long past. Then from his slumber he starts lonely-hearted, beholding gray stretches of tossing sea, sea-birds bathing with wings outspread, while hailstorms darken and driving snow. Bitterer then is the bane of his wretchedness, the longing for loved one. His grief is renewed. The forms of his kinsmen take shape in the silence. In rapture he greets them. In gladness he scans old comrades remembered. But they melt into air, with no word of greeting to gladden his heart. Then again surges his sorrow upon him, and grimly he spurs his weary soul once more to the toil of the tossing sea. No wonder, therefore, in all the world, if a shadow darkens upon my spirit when I reflect on the fates of men, how one by one proud warriors vanish from the halls that knew them, and day by day all this earth ages and droops unto death. No man may know wisdom till many a winter has been his portion. A wise man is patient, not swift to anger, nor hasty of speech, neither too weak nor too reckless in war, neither fearful nor vain, nor too wishful of wealth, nor too eager in vow, ere he know the event. A brave man must bide when he speaketh his boast, until he know surely the goal of his spirit. A wise man will ponder how dread is that doom when all this world's wealth shall be scattered and waste, as now over all through the regions of earth. Walls stand rime-covered and swept by the winds. The battlements crumble, the wine halls decay. Joyless and silent, the heroes are sleeping where the proud host fell by the wall they defended. Some battle launched on their long last journey. One a bird bore o'er the billowing sea. One the grey wolf slew. One a grieving earl sadly gave to the grave's embrace. The warden of men hath wasted this world till the sound of music and revel is stilled, and these giant-built structures stand empty of life. He who shall muse on these mouldering ruins and deeply ponder this darkling life must brood on old legends of battle and bloodshed, and heavy the mood that troubles his heart.
Watch this question.
Where now is the warrior?
Where is the warrior?
Where is the war horse? Bestowal of treasure and sharing of feast. Alas, the bright ale cup, the britty-clad warrior, the prince in his splendor, those days are long sped in the night of the past, as if they never had been. And now remains only for warriors' memorial a wall wondrous high with serpent shapes carved. Storms of ash spears have smitten the earls, carnage of weapon and conquering fate. Storms now batter these ramparts of stone, blowing snow and the blast of winter enfold the earth. Night shadows fall, darkly lowering, from the north driving raging hail in wrath upon men. Wretchedness fills the realm of earth, and fate's decrees transform the world. Here wealth is fleeting, friends are fleeting, man is fleeting, maid is fleeting. All the foundation of earth shall fail. Thus spake the sage in solitude pondering. Good man is he who guardeth his faith. He must never too quickly unburden his breast of its sorrow, but eagerly strive for redress. And happy the man who seeketh for mercy from his heavenly Father, our fortress and strength.
Go to page 28 and take a look, starting at roughly line 55 or so. Notice this is the facts of life. You can write it in your notes this way. This is the facts of life. You want to know the way the world goes? This is what happens. Notice, proud warriors vanish from the halls that knew them. This is kind of one of those realities. I remember I was giving this lecture and I said this, and then I looked out and I realized a number of the students were looking at me like, seriously? Because I said this. Imagine it. You worked so hard for so long to become so great as an athlete. You become this all-stater that gets the picture on the cardboard. You made it there and you're so proud of your accomplishments. But there will come a day when you'll come into this building and nobody will know you at all. The pictures will have been replaced in front by other pictures, and you'll find your way all the way to the back of the trophy case. And then many, many years later, Probably to make more space, your picture gets put in a box with lots of other ones and then put away inside of a janitor's room. And then even many years later after that, somebody comes and goes, what are these? I don't know, they're pictures of something. Toss them, we don't need them anymore. Ah! And the students were just looking at me like, serious? What did I do? You see what I'm saying? In other words, that's this. It's kind of a statement about this is kind of the way that the world works. Notice, day by day, all this earth ages and droops into death. Right? This is just kind of, let's put it in our notes, an adjective often associated with this kind of writing is it's very fatalistic. Very fatalistic. In other words, it looks at life and says, this is kind of the way it works. You're here for a while. You're a hero for a while. You're a warrior for a while. And then, notice down a little bit later, no music left in the hall. On page 28, lines 78, 79, 80. The hall stands empty of life. We think about, don't we, in the Beowulf poem, after Grendel attacks Hrothgar, and Harrod Hall. The Harrod Hall, no singing anymore. No joy anymore. It's kind of like sad and depressing. Notice on page 29, the days are long sped in the night of the past. I've had seniors that say, it's kind of weird to read these lines as a senior. Because all of a sudden, in your final months of your senior year, you start to grow nostalgic a bit. You will never ever have another December in high school. It's done. It's over. And you don't ever get to go back. You've been doing high school and Christmas time for 12 straight years. It'll never happen again. It'll never happen again. It'll always be different from here on. You can begin to say that about every event from here to graduation. Notice to finish, wealth is fleeting, line 100. Friends are fleeting. Man is fleeting. Woman or maid is fleeting. What does fleeting mean?
Going
Right?
away.
The great philosopher and warrior Marcus Aurelius. I'll give you a 3A quote that works rather nicely with this one. The great Roman warrior Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, said, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you." Marcus Aurelius. Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you. Aurelius. Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius. Notice the last stanza of this poem, though. I want you to put this word in your notes. What is a sage? Thus spake the sage in solitude pondering. What is a sage? Do you know this term?
Is it like kind of outcast kind of person?
You're close. It can often be a person who is not necessarily accepted or embraced by the larger group of people. A sage is an old person, normally, who has wisdom, or the ability to understand the past and sometimes even the future. In other words, our word today would be a wise old teacher. And the wise old teacher says, what? Well, good person is he, good man is he, who guardeth his faith. He must never too quickly unburden his breast of its sorrow, but eagerly strive for redress. Notice he finishes, and happy the man who seeketh for mercy. So you'll see some very religious overtones in the book of Exeter as well, the Exeter Book, as you hear some of these lines. So now we've listened to two views about wandering, alone, time is passing. But those are voices by men. Let's listen to a woman's voice now. This is the Wives Lament. I'm on page 30 now.
You know how you said like the Viking men were really big guys? Were the women that
They
big?
were. The females also were, they were big too. They were strong. And there's lots of stories about Viking women who are also fighters. So men didn't just do the fighting.
So like they would protect these people from the what?
This could be. They had to be, right? They had to fight for themselves and their children, right? They had to protect their children.
So were they just like tall women, or they were just like muscular?
No, they were really strong because they did lots of physical labor. See, they had to carry water and do all that kind of stuff too.
So like mine and Jesse's height, just
Yeah.
a lot of muscle.
Right. Strong, right? All right, let's take a look at it. Here we go. The Wives Lament. I want to make a couple of quick observations. This is, again, a sad poem. So let's write that down. It's a lament. It's a lamentation. It's a sad song. It's a sad prayer. We're going to hear that this woman has had all kinds of bad stuff happen. The key word you want to write down, though, is the word exile. E-X-I-L-E. Exile. What is an exile? What does that mean, to be in exile? It doesn't necessarily mean death, but it certainly means to be banished. To be banished. Do you remember in Romeo and Juliet? See, I'm making a 3A observation, aren't I? Relating to another text. Do you remember in Romeo and Juliet, when Romeo kills Tybalt and then he's not killed, he's banished. Do you remember that? He is told, you must leave Verona and go to a town called Mantua, and you're never allowed to come back to Verona again. That's called being exiled or banished. Here, you're going to have a similar situation in this poem. She's been sent into exile or banishment by her husband. Okay? She longs for him. She's bitter and angry about the friendless, lonely, we would say joyless fate she has to endure. Here is a woman all alone. Let's take a look. And again, you want to write down in your notes, why is she so unhappy? Okay, go.
When women are exiled, do they get to take their kids with them?
Sometimes no. Sometimes no.
So what happens when the dad goes off to work?
Right. Somebody else has to take care of it. Maybe, like, for example, he might have found another wife too, right? Sometimes guys will find another girl.
Oh, good for
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's happened that way once or twice in the history of the world, right? Here we go.
Women
Wives
find other
Lament.
men too. A lot better than the first one.
I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Read it.
By William Wordsworth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wandered
The Wives Lament,
There we go.
translated by Anne Stanford. I make this song about me full sadly, my own wayfaring. I, a woman, tell what griefs I had since I grew up, new or old, never more than now. Ever I know the dark of my exile.
There's the E word.
First my Lord went out away from his people, over the wave tumult. I grieved each dawn, wondered where my Lord, my first on earth, might be. Then I went forth, a friendless exile, to seek service in my sorrow's need. My man's kinsmen began to plot by darkened thought to divide us two, so we most widely in the world's kingdom lived wretchedly, and I suffered longing. My Lord commanded me to move my dwelling here. I had few loved ones in this land, or faithful friends. For this my heart grieves, that I should find the man well matched to me, hard of fortune, mournful of mind, hiding his mood, thinking of murder. Blithe was our bearing. Often we vowed that but death alone would part us two, not else. But this is turned round now, as if it never were our friendship. I must far and near bear the anger of my beloved. The man sent me out to live in the woods, under an oak tree, in this den in the earth. Ancient, this earth hall. I am all longing. The valleys are dark, the hills high, the yard overgrown, bitter with briars, a joyless dwelling. Full oft the lack of my Lord seizes me cruelly here. Friends there are on earth, living beloved, lying in bed, while I at dawn am walking alone under the oak tree, through these earth halls. There I may sit the summer-long day. There I can weep over my exile, my many hardships. Hence I may not rest from this care of heart, which belongs to me ever, nor all this longing that has caught me in this life. May that young man be sad-minded always, hard his heart's thought, while he must wear a blithe bearing with care in the breast, a crowd of sorrows. May on himself depend all his world's joy. Be he outlawed far in a strange folk-land, that my beloved sits under a rocky cliff, rimed with frost, a lord dreary in spirit, drenched with water in a ruined hall. My Lord endures much care of mind. He remembers too often a happier dwelling. Woe be to them that for a loved one must wait in longing.
Now this is an interesting poem on a number of counts. It isn't completely clear why she is sent away. Jot down in your notes some options here. Why might she have been sent away by her guy?
Cheated on him.
Good. Could be that he no longer loves her for any number of reasons, right? She messed around on him, whatever. He found another girl. So one reason that he could be sending her away has something to do with her. What's another reason, though? Why else might he send her away? If he, for example, is the speaker of either of the earlier two poems, he might, for example, know he's going to go away and be gone, right, for a really long time. He might send her away because of that, right?
I'd like to be alone.
Right, that's a good question. Why would he do this to her? To send her away, to be totally alone.
Because he doesn't want anybody else to have it.
It could be, right? Could be a jealous guy. There's any number of reasons why. Doesn't want her around any other guys while he's away. In what ways do you see this speaker engaging in some of the same kinds of thoughts of the other two speakers, even though she's a woman? How are they similar poems? Jot down at least one or two ways they're similar poems. What's one way they're similar?
They're all missing something.
They're all good. Let's write it down. All three speakers are missing something. Right? Notice at the very end of this poem, she hopes that he has sadness because she's alone. This is an early, notice our dates here, 900 Common Era. But already this is the breakup poem, isn't it, in some way? He can't believe it. At one point, they were totally happy. Everything was going great. And then, right? And now she's all alone. He is gone. Where does she live? Notice, interesting, another similarity of our poems. In the other poems, the guys are out at sea on a boat. Here, notice, she's in the middle of where? Where is she? She's in the woods, living under a tree all by herself. Yeah, all alone. Of course, that's going to be another element of all of these three poems, right? Notice, all alone. Not with other people. And therefore, sad. Is there a difference between being alone and being lonely? Yeah. Notice in these poems, not only are they alone, but they are what? They are lonely, aren't they? They feel completely disconnected. Now, our challenge, if we're going to think about a paper maybe that's coming, is to try to answer this simple question. What are the three messages from the three poems that we just looked at? And so as you start to outline your paper, you want to ask, what is the central message from each one of these three poems? Okay? Then you can begin the process of comparing, contrasting these messages as we go. So there you go, an introduction to the Exeter Book and three